Welcome in, everyone. Before we even get started with the material we've got lined up for you today, I just want to take a quick second to offer a divine blessing for your day and for your whole week ahead. May God grant you wisdom, peace, and clarity as you navigate whatever is on your plate right now. We are really thrilled that you've chosen to spend this time with us today.
Absolutely. It's a privilege to be here. And starting with that kind of grounded focus is definitely essential, especially given the sheer intensity of what we're unpacking today.
Yeah, intensity is the right word. We are turning our attention to Genesis chapter 27. And since you follow this field, you already know the basics of Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau.
Right, the classic Sunday school story.
Exactly. But we aren't just doing a basic recap. We're using the commentary and notes from two really well-respected scholarly sources, the Holman Study Bible and the NAA Study Bible, to tear down the mechanics of this ancient family conflict.
Because it really operates as basically a masterclass in high-stakes deception.
A total heist.
Yeah, a heist. Complete with family dysfunction and really the unyielding power of the spoken word in the ancient Near East.
So our mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct this event from a few different angles. We're going to look at the tactical layers of the con, the deeply flawed motivations of everyone involved, and what these study Bibles reveal about the cultural weight of this moment.
And we really have to start by looking at the patriarch himself, Isaac, because his physical and mental state is what sets this whole plot in motion.
Right. So the Holman Study Bible notes give this fascinating perspective on his state of mind at the start of chapter 27. He is over 100 years old, his vision is completely gone, and he is operating under this absolute conviction that he's about to die.
Which is, it's incredibly ironic when you zoom out and look at the actual historical timeline.
Why is that?
Well, the Holman commentary points out that Isaac's belief in his imminent death was totally premature.
He wasn't dying.
Not even close. He actually ends up living for at least another 20 years. Yeah, he dies at 180. But, his perception is his reality, so he's operating out of this sort of self-induced panic.
Right, a false sense of urgency.
Exactly. And out of that panic, he calls his eldest son Esau and tells him to grab his weapons, go hunt some wild game, and make him a savory meal.
The famous stew.
Right. And the stated purpose is so Isaac can eat it and then formally give Esau his blessing before he dies.
And we really need to pause here and talk about the weight of this blessing. Because we're not talking about just wishing your kid well.
Oh, no, not at all.
In this patriarchal society, the spoken blessing is basically a legally binding oral will.
A formal transfer of sovereignty.
Yes. The son who gets this blessing is granted the right to govern the entire clan after the father dies. And even bigger than that, it determines who inherits the divine covenant that God made with Abraham.
Land, leadership, national legacy, it's all tied up in this one spoken decree.
The stakes are absolute.
They are. And because the stakes are so unimaginably high, the NAA Study Bible brings up a really glaring issue with Isaac's motivation here.
Oh, this is the part about his appetite.
Yes. Given the colossal spiritual implications of passing on the Abrahamic covenant, you'd think the guy would be fasting, praying.
Evaluating his son's moral character.
Right. But instead, the NAA commentary emphasizes that Isaac's drive to bless Esau seems almost exclusively dictated by his stomach.
He just really wants that tasty food.
He is fixated on it. His spiritual duty has essentially been hijacked by his physical appetite.
Which gets even more complicated and frankly more problematic when we remember that Isaac is actively ignoring a direct divine prophecy.
Yes, that is a crucial point.
Years earlier, before these twin boys were even born, God explicitly stated that the older sibling would serve the younger. But Isaac is just trying to completely bypass that divine decree because he prefers his oldest son and his hunting skills.
It's a staggering level of human denial. He is prioritizing sensory cravings over a recognized divine oracle.
But he's not making these plans in a vacuum.
No, he isn't. And this is where the Holman commentary brings in some really vital cultural context regarding physical spaces in that era.
Right, the Middle Eastern traditions.
Exactly. In that culture, women were strictly kept out of the immediate company of men when official, legally binding business was happening.
So Rebekah isn't allowed in the room.
Right. She can't be there for the formal transfer of power. But the text makes it very clear she is close enough to eavesdrop.
She hears the whole plan. And instead of marching in there and confronting Isaac about his favoritism or reminding him of the prophecy, she immediately engineers this ruthless counterplot to secure the blessing for Jacob.
The sheer speed of her strategic thinking is wild. She knows exactly what her husband's sensory vulnerabilities are, and she weaponizes them.
She brings Jacob in and basically says, do exactly what I tell you.
And Jacob's first reaction isn't some moral objection. He's not saying, "Mother, we can't lie to father."
No, he's just worried about getting caught.
Right. He's focused on the logistics. He points out the obvious physical difference. Esau is famously rugged and incredibly hairy, and Jacob is smooth-skinned.
So Jacob says, if he reaches out and touches me, he's going to know instantly. I'll bring a curse on myself instead of a blessing.
And Rebekah's response is just chilling. She says, "Let your curse be on me. Only obey my voice."
She takes on the full spiritual liability of the treason.
She does. And once that liability is accepted, they move straight into the execution phase. And the Holman Study Bible actually breaks down the anatomy of this con into 5 distinct artificial devices.
5 devices to bypass Isaac's remaining senses. Let's go through them.
So the first device targets taste. Rebekah tells Jacob to bring her 2 choice young goats from their flock. And using her intimate knowledge of her husband, she cooks this savory stew to perfectly mimic the complex flavor of wild game.
She knows exactly how to season it to fool him.
Exactly. The second device targets smell, which, as we know, is deeply tied to memory and identity.
So she goes into Esau's belongings.
Right. She takes Esau's best garments, clothes that would smell intensely like the fields, the soil, the outdoors, and she puts them on Jacob.
Layering the deception. Covering up his domestic scent with that earthy aroma.
Yep. Then the third device addresses the tactile problem Jacob was so freaked out about. And the resourcefulness here is amazing. She takes the leftover skins from those young goats and ties them onto Jacob's hands and the smooth part of his neck.
So if Isaac relies on his hands to make up for his blindness,
He'll feel exactly what he expects to feel: Esau's hairy skin.
it is a full-blown sensory assault.
It really is.
But the props are only half the con. The Holman text identifies the fourth device as a shift from physical tricks to flat-out verbal deceit.
Right. Jacob walks in and Isaac asks, "Who are you, my son?" And Jacob doesn't use half-truths or vague answers.
No, he lies right to his father's face. He says, I am Esau, your firstborn. And he doubles down on it multiple times.
Which brings us to the fifth device. And the Holman commentary highlights this as the most shocking escalation of the whole plot.
No blasphemy.
Yes. Because Isaac is suspicious, right? He knows the hunt shouldn't have been this fast. He asked Jacob how he found the game so quickly.
And Jacob could have just said, oh, I got lucky. There was an animal right outside the camp.
But he doesn't. He weaponizes his father's faith against him. He says, "Because the Lord your God granted me success."
Drafting God into the lie.
It's extreme psychological manipulation. By invoking God, Jacob basically makes it spiritually dangerous for Isaac to question the success of the hunt.
It's so tense, and the text, brilliant, captures Isaac's internal logic, fighting against all these fake sensory inputs.
He demands that Jacob come close so he can touch him. This is the make-or-break moment.
It's a crucible.
Right. He feels the goat hair on Jacob's skin and says that famous, deeply conflicted line, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau."
His hearing was accurate.
It was. But the tactile deception, plus the smell of the clothes and the taste of the stew, it overwhelms his rational doubts. He eats the meal.
The transaction is cemented.
Exactly.
And once that meal is finished, Isaac speaks the blessing over Jacob. The Holman commentary breaks down 4 specific, massive elements in this decree.
Right, let's look at what he actually gets.
First, agricultural prosperity. He invokes the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. In an agrarian society, that is the ultimate guarantee of wealth and survival.
No famine for him.
Right. Second, international respect and dominance. He decrees that nations will serve and bow down to him. Third, absolute supremacy over his own family, making him lord over his brothers.
And then that final ironclad protective clause.
Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you.
He literally hands Jacob the absolute monopoly on the family's future.
And Jacob takes it and leaves. And the timing here is incredibly cinematic.
Oh, it's straight out of a movie.
The text says Jacob has scarcely left the room when the real Esau walks in from the field.
He's successfully hunted the game, made the meal just like his dad asked, and he walks in expecting his destiny.
He says, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me.
And the Holman source places a huge emphasis on Isaac's physical reaction here. When the reality of what just happened crashes down on him, the text says he trembled violently.
Visceral shock.
Complete shock. It's the physiological reaction of a man realizing he's been utterly outmaneuvered, his authority was hijacked, and he gave the covenant to the wrong guy.
Now, for us reading this today, the natural question is, why couldn't he just take it back?
Right, it was fraud, null and void.
Exactly.
Right.
But you have to understand the ancient Near Eastern mindset. In that culture, a spoken patriarchal blessing wasn't just words. Once it was released into the air, it carried an independent, almost tangible agency.
It was an enacted destiny.
Yes, it couldn't be retracted or canceled just because the human vessel was tricked. The spiritual and legal transfer was absolute.
And Esau grasps that finality immediately. The devastation is just total.
And the NAA Study Bible points out this really critical piece of Hebrew wordplay that Esau uses in his grief.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Esau recognizes a bitter pattern in his brother's behavior, and he ties it directly to his name.
Right, in Hebrew, the name Jacob is Jacob.
And Esau points out that Jacob sounds almost identical to the Hebrew verb akwav, which means to cheat or overreach or supplant.
Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He sees the whole systematic dismantling of his life.
And the NWA commentary goes even further into the linguistics. Esau first lost his birthright, the Beskora.
Which he sold for a bowl of soup.
Right. And now Jacob has stolen the blessing, the Baraka.
Bekora and Baraka.
The phonetic similarity just underscores how completely Esau has been displaced. He lost his legal standing as the firstborn, and now he's lost the spiritual empowerment of the patriarch.
He's desperate. He begs Isaac, weeping aloud, asking if there's just one blessing left for him.
And Isaac's response is so bleak. He does make a pronouncement, but the Holman commentary calls it an anti-blessing.
The dark inverse of what Jacob got.
Exactly. Where Jacob got the dew of heaven and rich soil, Isaac tells Esau his dwelling will be far from the fertile lands. He's pushed out to the harsh, arid regions.
And he decrees that Esau will live by his sword, a life of violence and conflict.
And finally, Isaac acknowledges that divine prophecy he was trying to ignore. He tells Esau he will serve his brother.
The only caveat is that eventually he'll break the yoke from his neck.
But it's fundamentally a pronouncement of marginalization and subjugation.
The family bond is totally shattered at this point. Esau's grief hardens into murderous hatred.
Yeah, he actively starts plotting to execute Jacob.
He decides he'll wait for the mourning period for his father to end again, assuming Isaac is about to die, and then he'll take his lethal revenge.
And the NAA source notes that this brings up a really dark, recurring theme in Genesis.
Fratricide.
Right. From Cain and Abel on, the narrative shows how family dysfunction and favoritism inevitably lead to brother murdering brother. The toxicity has hit critical mass.
Which forces Rebecca to make her final move.
She finds out about the assassination plot, and she realizes she's about to lose both her sons in a single day. If Esau kills Jacob, Esau will either be executed or exiled.
So she needs to extract Jacob immediately.
Her plan is to send him hundreds of miles north to Mesopotamia to live with her brother Laban.
She tells Jacob to stay there a few days until Esau calms down.
But she has a logistical problem. She needs Isaac's official permission to send the newly blessed heir away.
And she obviously can't tell him the real reason. Hey, your oldest son is going to murder your youngest son because of the giant con I just pulled.
No, that wouldn't go over well. So she needs a cover story. And she leverages this pre-existing fracture in the family.
Esau's wives.
Yes. Esau had married 2 Hittite women, local Canaanites, and this was a huge source of stress for Isaac and Rebekah. They wanted their lineage kept separate.
So Rebecca goes to Isaac and complains bitterly about her daughters-in-law. She says, I am weary of my life because of these Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of them, what good is my life?
It is brilliant psychological manipulation. She plays flawlessly on Isaac's prejudices and his renewed focus on their covenant lineage.
And it works perfectly. Isaac summons Jacob, blesses him again, officially passing on the Abrahamic blessing this time, and orders him to go to Haran to find a wife.
Jacob escapes with his life, the birthright, and the blessing.
Incredible. And when we step back and look at this whole deeply flawed story, both the Holman and NAA commentaries point out a really critical insight about the biblical text itself.
The narrator is almost uncomfortably objective.
Right. The text refuses to sanitize anyone.
There is zero editorializing to make them look better. It doesn't apologize for Rebekah's deceit, or Jacob's lies, or Isaac's gluttony, or Esau's secular mindset.
It just documents their moral failures with stark neutrality.
And the theological insight here is that the overarching divine purpose moved forward not because these were perfect people, but in spite of their severe dysfunction.
The promises to Abraham were preserved through a family that was literally tearing itself apart with fraud.
It's a worldview where ultimate purposes are achieved through the messy, chaotic reality of human choices.
It totally challenges the idea that ancient texts only present flawless heroes. It is a brutally honest portrait of human nature.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up our analysis of these sources today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We spent a lot of time talking about the absolute irrevocability of the spoken word in the ancient Near East.
Right. Once Isaac released those words, they altered reality permanently.
Exactly. He couldn't delete them. They had structural power. And I want you to consider how that ancient reality maps onto our modern hyper-digital existence.
Oh, that's a great point.
We live in an environment where we generate words constantly. Emails, texts, comment sections.
It's just endless output.
And because of the sheer volume, it's so easy to treat our words as cheap, like they're disposable or easily retracted with an edit button.
But psychologically, it's much closer to Isaac's tent.
Exactly. The labels we assign people, the sharp criticisms we fire off, the specific encouragements we give, they carry an independent momentum. They shape the self-perception of the people around us long after the breath leaves our lungs or the screen goes dark.
Our words leave an irrevocable footprint, too.
They really do. Thank you for spending this time diving into these texts with us. Exploring the depth of these sources with you is always a continuous privilege. May God bless all the listeners.